Good morning, you're watching the Channel M Breakfast Show on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Nikki Dean.
And I'm Byron Evans. A very important day today. Born on this day, February 12th, 1809, one of the greatest men to be born in this country. Changed the way we think about the environment and the surrounding different animals and species across the planet. I am, of course, talking about Charles Darwin.
Of course, it was on the tip of my tongue, I was going to say that.
Celebrating 200 years since his birth. He was born in Atcham in Shropshire. And another very important man was born on this day on February 12th, 1809. 16th President of the United States of America. There's a very important link with Manchester. Abraham Lincoln, the abolisher of slavery. During the 19th century, and well, he has a very close connection with Manchester. During that time, there was obviously the Industrial Revolution was kicking in, the cotton trade and the industry, the mills here in Manchester were flourishing until the American Civil War, and the Northern forces under the order of Abraham Lincoln had sealed certain ports, and they couldn't export the cotton over to England. There was lots of the mills closed down. There was widespread poverty. People were living in complete despair within the area, but they agreed with Abraham Lincoln because of his abolition of slavery. They stood fast, and they kind of they wanted to kind of empathise with what was going on with the slaves after working in those terrible conditions, as a lot of the mill workers did as well, and hence why we have a statue of Abraham Lincoln in Lincoln Square right here in the city centre.
Oh, there you go. You can tell your mates today as you wander past it. So I think the conclusion that we can draw from that is today is the birthday of great. So if you're celebrating your birthday as well, well done, you're great.
Indeed. In a few minutes, we have the latest sporting headlines with Pete Spencer, the editor of the Manchester Evening News sports pages, and psychic astrologer Raymond Castro Giovanni will be here looking at the stars for the perfect love match. If you have any questions for our Raymond, email breakfast@channelm.co.uk, or you can text us. Start with the word show to 88821, and at the end of the programme, Raymond will be giving you all those mystic answers.
Yes, he will. That's all coming up a little bit later, but first, it's over to James for today's news bulletin.
Good morning. Here are the headlines this Thursday. The judge who led the inquiry into Harold Shipman's crimes says it's still possible for a rogue doctor to literally get away with murder. Dame Janet Smith says a shake-up of the coroner's system isn't enough to close a loophole that means death certificates still rely on the honesty of just one doctor. Her inquiry 5 years ago called for changes to stop a repeat of the case happening again. It found that the Hyde GP murdered at least 215 patients. A man will appear in court later accused of murdering a woman found dead at her home in Stockport last month. Patricia Smales was found dead at her house in Gatley early on January the 16th. Michael Smales, who's been charged with killing her, will appear before magistrates there. Yesterday, it was the bosses of the biggest banks. Today, it's the Prime Minister who will face tough questions about the country's banking crisis. Gordon Brown's due before a group of senior MPs for his twice-yearly question and answer session. One of the topics up for discussion is the bailouts that have been given to some of the biggest lenders on the high street and the wider impact of them. A 51-year-old woman has been left with several deep cuts to her face after being assaulted by a robber in Blakely. Josephine Maguire was walking on White Moss Road late on Monday evening when a man grabbed her handbag. She refused to hand it over, and he then started hitting her and knocked her to the floor till he got the bag. She's needed stitches to her face, and police have called her attacker vicious. There are fresh fears for the future of Jodrell Bank. The man in charge of the country's science funding, Professor Keith Mason, says the landmark telescope is not suitable for modern astronomy. It's only a few months after the observatory was told there was funding in place to secure its short-term future. Mental health experts are welcoming plans to put a new network of so-called memory clinics in every town. Its aim is to put dementia on the same footing in the NHS as other major illnesses, such as cancer and heart disease.
Modern life is complex enough, even when our mental capacity is at its best. And that's why dementia, which involves the serious loss of memory and language capability, is so devastating. The effects of dementia are dealt with every day by dementia care consultant Colin Sheeran.
In the UK, there are over 750,000 people with a dementia. In 10 years' time, it's predicted that that will be over 1 million.
Colin Sheeran believes that opening a memory clinic in every town is a good move.
Having more memory clinics will mean that more people are diagnosed earlier, more people have access to the right types of treatment. Those same people will be able to make better decisions about their life, and that's actually what will have the major impact in the future on care homes like the Burnham Court. If people can make better decisions about the future, then care homes will be better able to meet those needs.
One of the approaches at Burnham Court is to display familiar items in the hope of exercising whatever memory capacity residents have. Dementia is so devastating because it degrades memory and speech. And that's why something as simple as this old gramophone can be so useful for somebody who's affected. Because to most people, it's just a charming reminder of a bygone age. But to somebody who's living with dementia, it can be a great stimulus to memory and thus promote conversation. It looks like the government's plan to expand memory clinics hasn't come a moment too soon.
I think the time is right. I think there's a realisation that dementia isn't a problem that's going to go away, it's going to get worse.
Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
Charities here in Greater Manchester have seen a massive dip in donations because of the recession. Charity shops are some of the hardest hit, with potential donors keeping hold of items longer and also mending them instead. Figures from the Charities Aid Foundation show more than 2/5 of charities have had less funding in the past 3 months. That's it from me for this morning. I'll have more for you in the Channel M lunchtime news at 12 noon. And don't forget to join Andy Crane for a full roundup of the day's news from 5 o'clock tonight. Now, though, here's Byron and Pete Spencer with the sports headlines.
OK, a quick roundup of the latest sporting action, joined by Pete Spencer, the sports editor of the sports pages from the Manchester Evening News. And, well, it was England 0, Spain 2 in a friendly last night. But what lessons can we take from that match, Peter?
Well, I think we got to accept that we're a second-rate footballing nation at the moment. We're completely outplayed. I think they should go back to basics. They should. David James should be dropped immediately. Beckham shouldn't get any more caps. We should start looking to youth and developing a team for the future. Because talk about experimenting, you don't need to experiment with David James anymore, and you certainly don't need to experiment with Beckham anymore. The saddest thing for me was that when Beckham eventually did come on, he made a telling contribution, which shows how poor the rest of them were.
It was his 108th cap. He's equalled the record of that of Bobby Moore for appearances for his country. I asked you this a little bit earlier on the breakfast show. Do you think David Beckham and Bobby Moore should be mentioned in the same sentence?
Not at all. Bobby Moore's won the World Cup. David Beckham's never going to win the World Cup. In fact, I don't think we're going to win the World Cup in my lifetime. The way they were performed last night, they were totally outplayed in every single area of the pitch, midfield particularly.
OK, just quick news on Manchester City, because news about Thaksin Shinawatra. That ghost doesn't seem to be leaving the Eastland Stadium. Well,
he still owns up to 10% of the club, so he is involved in some capacity, but they've removed him from his position as an honorary president, and about time too. He also has a criminal record in his home country. He's got to get his name cleared, and of course that tarnishes the image of the club when they're looking for sponsorship and other deals.
OK, thanks, Pete. And more sport on tomorrow's breakfast show with Mike Bradley. Time now, though, before we leave it, because the Six Nations rugby union competition is in full swing at the moment, and we caught up with the Sale Shark Mark Cueto. But it was a preview to England's match against Wales on Valentine's Day.
I've played there twice in the past and never won, so you know, I know what it's like. It's, you know, from the crowd and that point of view, you know, it is loud and it's not intimidating, but you're aware of it. But you know, that's what you want to play in front of. You know, I've said it to you in the past. You know, you don't want to. You know, you don't want to go somewhere that's quiet and there's, you know, it's like playing for sale. You know, if you play, you know, you play in front of 2,000, it's rubbish. You know, you play in front of 10, 11,000 at Edgeley, it's brilliant. And similar on this, it's just a bigger stage. You know, to play in front of 80,000 mad Welsh going crazy and wanting you to lose, it's, you know, it's the best environment you can play in.
You know, the Welsh are enjoying having a successful rugby team, and they're playing some attractive rugby as well, which is good. So it will be doubly difficult. But we have to turn that round. The expectations on them to win and to play well. We haven't got that much expectation, so we need to get in there and fight, and we can also play, and we need to battle and quieten the crowd down. All those things you do when you're away from home, but that comes again with you've got to execute. You've got to be accurate. Silly penalties, mistakes, will get punished. So the team's aware of that. The team spoke about that themselves. That was what they said. The improvement they need to make from last week.
It's a real hostile environment. You go down there, as you drive through from the coach to the ground, you get some irate Welsh fans. They're gesticulating from the crowd before you've even got in the ground. And when you're in the ground and Wales are singing the anthem, you can feel the emotion, and people are bouncing off the walls for the performance. So, if you allow a Welsh team to get momentum and play this very classy brand of rugby that they're playing at the moment, then we could find ourselves in real trouble. But the whole point of us is being players that want to be competitive, and we're going to go out there and really push them and challenge them in everything we do and make sure that the afternoon is ours, not theirs.
Now, with Valentine's Day looming, you might be wondering if you have the perfect partner, or if you're single, you might be looking for your very own Valentine. Well, according to psychic astrologer Raymond de Castro Giovanni, the answers are in the stars. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, they certainly are in the stars. And we can use the stars to help us find that harmony and that balance and that love within a relationship to make it work.
What about if you're single, though? How do you go about finding out who your fancy's star sign is without looking like a stalker?
Well, it was so easy in the 70s because it was the opening line for a chat-up. What's your star sign? But, of course, the world's moved on and we look at things differently. But actually, knowing your own element is perhaps the most important thing. And people don't know their element. So, for instance, each of the star signs is associated to one of the 4 elements. There's fire, there's earth, there's air, and there's water. And depending on those elements, people want different things. Fire elements, for instance, they want lots of passion. They really want it to be exciting. Yes, of course. Now, the air elements are quite interesting because air elements like it to be lots of language, lots of talking, to excite the ethereal, to make the mind think, to sort of tease in a gentle way.
I think Byron's nodding because you might be an air.
I'm an air,
Sounds about right,
I'm
Bobby.
all about mental.
Well, absolutely.
All about mental.
And at the moment, the sun is in Aquarius, and it's not an accident that St. Valentine's Day just happens when the sun passes through the constellation of Aquarius, because Aquarius is about love, it is about romance. And, of course, everybody thinks that Aquarius is a water sign, but it's actually an air sign. And it's that sensitive element, it's that emotional energy. So poets really excel during this period of time as well. So you can say the right thing with a little bit of thought.
Get romantic. So are you saying there then that the best matches are from within the same element? So, for example, an earth sign with an earth sign, an air sign with an air sign?
It's a simpler match. But if you want sort of a nice, gentle, easy relationship, stick to your own element, as it were. Know your element and be attracted to a sign in your element. And there is a natural attraction there. But the most exciting relationships are when you go for the opposite sign, which is normally the opposite element as well.
Well, Raymond, I have got some emails here, which we're going to quiz you about shortly.
Yes.
In fact, Raymond will be back at 8:45.
He certainly will, after this short break, answering your love match questions. If you've got a quick one you want to sneak in, email us breakfast@channelm.co.uk, or you can text the word show to 88821, followed by your question. Leave your details and questions will all be revealed.
You've got a couple of minutes.
Short break. Quick.